On today's World Insight with Tian Wei, 2008 financial crisis, 10 years on. In a climate with rising trade tensions, how to prevent another crisis. And on tonight's episode of Game Changers, a controversial celebrity but a true artist, Jin Xing opens up about her transformative journey.
Also, I have the right to receive the gift from life. So for this gift, I can sacrifice a lot.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. The program is coming to you from Beijing on CGTN. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the 2008 global financial crisis. It was one of the worst economic crises since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Ignited by the subprime mortgage crisis in the United States, it rapidly evolved into a global disaster, engulfing both the banking industry and the real economy. The aftermath of the crisis has lasting repercussions. First, let's take a look at what happened then.
September 2008, just 10 years ago, but in many ways a lifetime away. There were rumors something was wrong in the US housing market. A handful of economists spoke up, but their warnings were mostly ignored. In March 2008, the investment bank Bear Stearns went under. But things really began to hit home on September the 15th, when the financial services company Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy protection, and the world suddenly realized some banks and big corporations were being less than truthful about the health of their balance sheets, and a global financial meltdown was in the offing. So what was it that rattled the global economy so badly a decade ago? Bankers were selling what were known as subprime mortgages to people, many in poorer neighborhoods, failing to explain that interest rates would double after 2 years.
They were lending to people that they called ninjas, no income, no job, no assets. And you know, when you don't lend money to people that you know can't pay it back to you, and that was the problem during the lead up to the financial crisis.
Subprime loans were sliced up, bundled with good ones, and sold to banks and governments around the world as investments called collateralized debt obligations. And within those, it was impossible to know what was good debt and what was bad. Banks like Lehman gorged themselves on these risky assets, thinking their potential losses would be covered by a type of insurance called credit default swaps. It was a big mistake. When Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, the markets imploded. Some say the world came within a whisper of all-out global financial collapse. Within weeks, Congress passed the TARP, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, a massive bailout by the US Treasury to prop up banks, stabilize the financial system, and restore economic growth.
For more discussion on the 10 years on from the great financial crisis of 2008, with us in our Beijing studio, Xu Sitao, who is the chief economist from Deloitte, China. In London, we have Ian Begg, a professor at the European Institute and co-director of Darrenhall Forum of the London School of Economics and Political Science. In Irvine, we have Dan McGlory, who is the managing director and head of China and head of equity capital markets at the Boosted Securities. Welcome, gentlemen, to our program. First of all, may I have your opinion, Mr. McGlory, since you've been in investment banking for a long time and later joined by Mr. Xu, I guess. Are we near another crisis as we speak, if we are looking at the world market right now?
I don't think we are. 10 years is a long time, and many things have occurred since the global financial crisis. I think the main point is the global financial system is far less interconnected than it was a decade ago. And it's mainly due to a decrease in capital outflows. That foreign direct investment capital outflows are off globally by about half. So the world has grown, the economy has grown, debt has grown, but it's done so on a much more localized basis. So the possibility of contagion and the possibility of global disruption is far less than it was a decade ago. Really?
Mr. Xu, do you agree with that?
First of all, I don't think anyone can forecast a major financial crisis. But if you refer what we saw 10 years ago as evidenced by Lehman Brothers type collapse, I think that's a small likelihood event. But we are seeing sporadic stress of financial system, particularly in emerging market.
What exactly are you suggesting the stress, the nature of the stress, sir?
Well, the nature of stress really combination of factors. For example, high oil prices, rising U.S. interest rate, certain economic mismanagement, for example, in Turkey, South Africa. But investors are still reasonably informed. They are not using just one big brush to paint all emerging markets. The bottom line is most currencies right now are floating.
Okay. Professor Beck, it's time for you to speak out. Earlier, you have your two colleagues talking in different directions. Ms. McClory was talking about, you know, the world is actually very different from what it used to be, particularly when it comes to investment banking and also the debt market. Mr. Xu is talking about, well, maybe some challenges in the emerging economies. Maybe that's where things are likely to go wrong. Professor Beck, what about your opinion?
Well, I agree there is no immediate prospect of another financial crisis. But the one thing we have to remember is that every single financial crisis is unanticipated. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a crisis. If there was perfect knowledge of when a crisis was coming, steps would be taken to stop it. All the history of the last, let's say, of the post-Second World War years is that every single financial crisis has taken the authorities by surprise. The next one is not the same as the previous one, and very often what you find is the tools available to regulators and central bankers is very much like the old story of generals being very well equipped to fight the last war and not being able to anticipate the next war.
But when you look at what is going on right now, Mr. McClory, particularly, let's just say, the two biggest economies, the United States and China, the trade war is not necessarily going to help either of the economy, at least in short term. For the longer term, exactly how the world economic system is going to be like and the trade system is going to be like, nobody knows. So these kinds of uncertainty, lack of confidence about prospect, what does it mean to the world economy?
Well, I think first of all, global leaders, business, central banks, they need to control the controllables. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. You know, the Tier 1 capital ratio for European and U.S. banks has gone from around 4% to over 15%. Banks have become far more conservative. But what has this done? This has led to a rise in non-bank lending. So you have large digital powerhouses like Alibaba, Amazon, Facebook, Tencent that have created alternative financing and alternative bank-like systems. So that whole area needs to be watched. So maybe money has moved into that sphere where it didn't exist a decade ago. I think when we put into practice the main concern, which is let's not have any one particular sector concentration. Of course, 10 years ago it was real estate, it was loans that were way beyond the prices of property. You know, looking to avoid those kind of situations, I think, can leave us in the best status.
You haven't really answered my question. My question is about confidence. My question is about the credibility of the current international system. If we don't believe in the system, everybody go their own way, it is very likely we're going to have problems. And that certainly is likely to lead to another round of crisis, whether you name it economic crisis or other crisis. So, Ms. McClory, what do you think about the trade war? Once again, it is only one of those examples between China and the United States. It's likely to be United States and Canada, United States and Japan, and also the other way around in many cases. So what does that mean, the lack of confidence, particularly this time?
What you're bringing up, Wei, is the questioning of institutions and the value of bilateral and multilateral relationships, and what effect does that have on the reliance on these systems. I think systems are being pushed to the side. I think past alliances are being greatly questioned through nationalistic movements in many countries, the United States included. But the trade war will not lead to a global financial crisis.
Well, the trade war will not directly lead to global financial crisis. However, the trade war is going to lead to lack of confidence and therefore influencing the global market, including global markets in the developed countries and the developing and emerging economy ones as well. So, Professor Beck, what about that lack of confidence? Is it going to help us? Or is it going to actually give us more burden, leading to prevention of the next round of crisis?
I think that the lack of confidence may do two things. One is that it's causing what Mr. McCrory described earlier, which is a retrenchment inside borders. The interlinkages between parts of the global economy have quite clearly diminished, and that's going to be exacerbated if the trade wars erect new barriers. But the second thing it does is to create a lack of confidence in the global institutions, which have, since the 1940s, largely been behind the way global governance has functioned. Now, it may be that the International Monetary Fund in particular will find a way of coping with this, but we do have to recognize more generally that we're in a very new environment of monetary policy, where interest rates have been low for so long that the economy is only just adjusting to the idea that cheap money is there for the indefinite future. Plus we have the eventual unwinding of all these huge amounts of quantitative easing still to hit the economy. So that too is going to influence confidence.
I see. Mr. Xu, you've been a very close observer of China's economy and the recent trade war, but those are just examples of economies and trade relations. What do you make of that?
Chinese economy is very open, so trade sector accounts for over 40% of GDP. That's nearly twice of the ratio in the United States. So in the short term, trade tensions affecting China a lot more, mainly through the following channels. First of all, because the higher tariffs, so certain prices are going up, and which actually we feel actually very deeply. And secondly, for corporate investment, their behavior will be affected due to supply chain disruptions. And thirdly is really about confidence, and investors' confidence actually being affected adversely as reflected through lower stock valuation. Now, in the medium term, I suspect that's also going to affect United States, because trade tariffs is really working in a reverse manner of tax cut, particularly when stock market at a very high value.
There's another layer of this, which is when you look at the global economy, you want to look at also the new economies, so-called economic models. Some of those models, after the testing of a few years, just do not necessarily seen in many's eyes could be the potential for the future. If you look at Elon Musk's case study, if you look at Uber, for example, you look at the relevant cases of Facebook, people put so much emphasis on the new economy, but how much money will it really bring to us?
There is how much money they bring to economic activity.
Exactly.
There's also a question of how they're taxed. How they're taxed is crucial in this, because the ability of what we call the FANGs, the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix and so on, to pay far less tax than seems to be the case for more conventional companies, is a threat to the viability of governments' fiscal positions. So that's one consideration. But the other is, if you think about, let's say, another 10-year horizon, we're celebrating 10 years of, marking 10 years of the financial crisis. 10 years on from now, countries like China, much of Western Europe, will be aging very rapidly. And that is going to create a demand for new forms of services to deal with our aging populations. So the real generator of jobs is going to be the service industries, not these very high-tech things or the Elon Musks of this world. They are, if you like, on the fringes of the mainstream employment and the main forms of activity. And if I may very quickly, one other point, it is that we should avoid being seduced by the notion of the average. We talk about, on average, companies are doing well, they have good funding. It's the ones who are not well funded that are very often the triggers of problems, or the countries which are not well funded or in difficulty, like Argentina recently. These are the sources of potential new crises.
Well, for you talking about the service sector rather than the new economies, whether our colleagues from the investment banking are going to necessarily agree with that or not, that's a question mark, Professor Beck. What about you, Mr. Xu, about that point?
I think when we look at this dichotomy between new economy and old economy in China, I think the conclusion perhaps is clearer than what you see in the West. I think it's very clear, and there's overcapacity in many areas in old economy, but in new economy, the demand is not being fulfilled yet. We can also make the comparison. For example, in the West, credit card companies, they've been doing a reasonably good job. But in China, we never had satisfactory services of traditional financial service. So that's why we are embracing e-commerce. And that's why e-commerce in China is developing so fast and driving innovation. So I think the situation in China is very different.
It really depends on which kind of new economy we're talking about here, particularly Mr. McGlory, coming from investment banking's perspective, I'm sure you're much more clearer about this. Whether we're going to see whether those new economies, so-called, are going to be categorized as successful and non-successful stuffs, and whether they're going to contribute to our economy or our economy going to drag down by some of those. Sir.
I think, in fact, an economy can be driven and certainly grown based on these alternative and innovative companies. And many countries are emphasizing that, China being among them. So I see this as a way to have a direct effect on the growth of GDP. Certainly the taxation aspect is a little bit elusive. I completely agree with that point. But the genie's out of the bottle, as we say, and it's not going back in. So these digital disruptors are going to continue to advance. China, as a country, has done a great job of supporting not only its national champions, but its global champions in that sector.
The genies are already out of the box, as you said. We hope the ghosts are not out of the box. We want to put them still into the box to avoid another round of financial crisis around the world. Before we go, gentlemen, I want to have one sentence from every one of you very briefly. What is wrong with us 10 years ago, and how can we make it right, even from now, 10 years on? Mr. Xu, you're closest to me, so you go ahead and answer that question.
Well, I'm speaking from emerging market perspective. China is the largest emerging market. I think the lesson is we should not pursue too high economic growth rate. In the end, that's often breeding bubbles.
Okay, Professor Beck.
Well, maybe I'll speak as a Scotsman and a taxpayer and say that one lesson from 10 years ago is that the taxpayers are not going to accept bailing out huge banks that have very cavalier approaches to their business models in future. And that may be the one big takeaway we have from the financial crisis.
And last but not least, Ms. McGlory.
Clearly, what happened 10 years ago was caused by irrational exuberance in the housing market, overlending, overborrowing, and a subsequent crash in housing prices. So that has to be addressed. We can't allow that to occur again, even in bubble situations. And to China's credit, when many major countries stood back 10 years ago, they launched a $786 billion stimulus package to literally start to get the world back on its feet. So that type of government intervention, in fact, can be very useful and very helpful.
I see. Dan McGlory, Xu Sitao, last but not least, Ian Begg. Really appreciate, gentlemen, for being with us. We hope we all work hard to prevent another round of crisis, no matter what name it is. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Stay with us here on World Insight. Still to come on our program. On tonight's episode of Game Changers, a controversial celebrity but a true artist, Jin Xing, opens up about her transformative journey. Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. The program is coming to you Monday to Friday on CGTN. On tonight's episode of Game Changers, we got up close and personal with a special person who chose to follow her heart, no matter the odds. She went through a sex reassignment operation in 1995 to become a woman from being a man. This was unimaginable at the time and raised a whole of controversy. But because of her personal charisma, she won the hearts of the people. She is not only an artist, but also a host, a drama performer, and the mother of 3 adopted children. She tells me her personal and career struggles. Before the interviews, let's take a look at this.
She puts on many hats as a mentor, drama performer, and host. But of all these, Jin Xing identifies most as a dancer. She takes pride and confidence in showing the grace of a seasoned performer on the floor. In her mind, dancing is her passion and profession. Jin Xing is one of China's most prominent modern dancers. She is the pioneer of the modern Chinese dance and went on to win many international awards. In 1999, she founded the Jin Xing Dance Troupe, which is the first private modern dance group in China. She not only served as a choreographer of the dance troupe, but also as the lead performer. For more than a decade, the Jin Xing Dance Troupe promoted and popularized modern dance. In 1995, Jin Xing had a sex reassignment operation, which drew great controversy. But she was unfazed and kept her eye on her art. Besides dancing, she worked as a host and a drama performer. The TV show she once hosted was very popular in China. Now she's relishing a new role as the mother of 3 adopted children, as she turns a new leaf in life.
From the single woman become a 3 children's mother. That's a big changing for me. Actually, completely changing my concept, vision of life.
How?
Because before I was a single lady, enjoying my life, I enjoy the stage, the ballerina, the success, the fame, the tension. But somehow, when the new 3 life come to my life, bring me down to the earth and tell you have a beautiful, your private time on stage, but the real life like this. That's beautiful change.
That's a beautiful change, and also very different personalities.
Yes.
In 2 different lives.
I think so. I never expecting I become a mother. For me, it's a life gift to me. I become 3 children's mother and to take a responsibility for the 3 innocent lives. It's a beautiful gift. So completely changing my vision of life, really.
But I understand that raising 3 children is not an easy task.
Yes, I think that I learned that.
You adopted 3 of them.
I adopted 3 children, yes.
But, you know, for China, adoption is still not necessarily a very common thing.
Very difficult. I think the mentality of Chinese society is still individual family orientated, adopting another no blood connections. People, they always feel you give a lot, then you don't get any return back. That's the Chinese mentality. But for me, I want to be myself. What I didn't know, I become mother of 3. Then I said, this is such a gift. I only take the responsibility. I didn't expecting anything return back. For me, this is very open to another dimension of life. I learned a lot from how I raising the 3 children, teaching me a lot about the real life.
Like what?
Compromising. Before I was a single diva on stage, everybody look at me. I don't need a compromising, but become a mother of 3. You need a compromise. You need to swallow a lot of difficulty things, then it's swallowed and digested. They always bring the beautiful smile to the children. Let them know life continue go on. Tomorrow will be better. Yeah.
Are you a responsible mother or what?
I do, but I was the tough mother.
I see.
In my family, I was
tough love.
Yeah, tough love. I give our kids a lot of rules. Yes, some certain things I give a lot of space, but certain times they need to respect the rule.
Right. You always, can I say that, volunteer to put yourself into the most difficult situations.
Yes, you can say that.
Let's just start from the sexual transmission operation.
Yes.
You did something nobody else is there to come out and say.
Yes.
It was so rare in China.
Yeah.
Even today. How did you have the gut to do it?
I think I have a full of respect for myself for this life, because I know life puts me in different situations, but do I have the guts to correct it, to become truly myself, from my soul, from my mind, from my body, everything? Then I said, if I have the guts, also I have the right to receive the gift from life. So for this gift, I can sacrifice a lot.
you are your own little world, right? You create all these positive energy around yourself, trying to think in the most positive way.
I think so. Even I facing my enemies, who somebody hate me on the, want to fight with me, but I see the positive side. Why he want to fight with me? What did he gain? I'm losing. If I fight with him, even I'm lost, I gain the experience of why I'm weak this part. I always see the positive side, so I never feel afraid of any challenging. Maybe also part of my education.
You could say that easily today. But at the time when you just had the operation, it's not the same thing.
Not the same thing. When
you went through hell.
I know. When I'm out of the hospital, the minutes, whole society, all the people
turn against you.
Turn against me, and always back. Then I said, okay, just give me some time. I will prove my independent individual choice deserve equal respect. Just give me time. I'm still the beautiful dancer on stage. I'm still the true person as Jin Xing. I didn't change my name. So just give me time. And people turning around, and give me the smile, give me a big hug. That's give me more confidence for facing all the challenges.
But how did you went through every stage of it? Particularly, after the operation, the pain itself, and also the prejudice against you.
Yeah.
It's not just one day they would change their attitude.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to be, in a way, in a comfort zone, so that you know that even though you're alone, you can be with yourself.
Yes.
But how could that happen? It just do not come naturally.
No,
I don't believe so.
No, it's not come naturally. Your actual life will told you how to become that.
Sound like a philosopher today.
No, life like yes, exactly. Then, no, when I've been through a terrible time, I also like normal people. I'm crying. I just hold my body, sucking with all the energy. In front of my eyes, completely no hope, no vision. But I always thinking, okay, this is not the end of the world.
How did you know?
If I'm still breathing, next morning I'm still wake up. That means I still have the chance. So, okay, what can that be? Some people may be better than you. Some people may be worse than me. But it's okay. Everybody taking their life. You made your choice. Why you complain? Nobody forced you to change your sex.
Right. At that point, were you gradually realizing all of these things that you're telling me?
Yes, that I learned that because of you are the unique one, you have to go to unique tunnel to get all your unique experience. Then you become the unique, the only Jin Xing. Without this experience, you are just like other ordinary. No, you want to be special, you need a special treatment.
The community of LGBT in China
Yeah.
is still something that is very controversial in the society.
Yes.
20 years ago, when you went through the operation, your father was one that is definitely against it. But now, do you think 20 years later, those who have similar fate as you do would experience the same thing?
I think the situation is getting better. But of course, 20 years ago, when I done that, not that many cases, not that many reference people to knowledge about these issues. Now people have a much more awareness about the LGBT group and the minority of decisions choices. I think now it's slowly growing up, popping up. That's also bring a lot of society tensions to it. It's in a way it's good, in a way also difficult.
A lot of attention, yes, is paying to the LGBT community. Is it mainly curiosity, about something that's different from us?
Yes.
Or is it a willingness to be together with that community?
No, I think a lot of curiosity, also the prejudice as well. But I think you have to, before the environment become a very healthy environment, suitable environment, I think you have to assure yourself make the right choices. Don't confuse with yourself. Always confidence with who you are. This is most important. Then you turn into the positive attitude, turn into a society, the environment you live in.
But Chinese culture traditionally used to be quite inclusive, including to the LGBT community.
Yes.
In our ancient, for example, novels, there were some description of that. So what about now? Have we changed, or do you think things will come back? Maybe we'll be once again more inclusive than we are today?
I think so, because China opened for 30 years for the economic sense of open to the whole world, showing the real China. But at the same time, we have imported a lot of idea of a Western concept. For example, everything become labelized. Everything group labelized, everything put people in the category. I think why don't you just leave it? let it be. Let people choosing. I want this group. Maybe I want, after a few years, I want to change to this group. Let them be free to be themselves.
Right.
I think that's part of Chinese culture, ancient culture. We do have that space for people. Certain things we don't want to talk about it. Just let it be. That's part of China. Not like a Western country. Everything put on the table one by one.
Yeah.
So
that means even though China do not have legislations to so-called, in a way, give the legal status of the LGBT community, but in a way it is sitting through it peacefully.
Of course.
Is that what you meant?
Exactly. That's I think in my case, people always think, why don't you do more for the LGBT group? I think myself in China, what I'm doing to everything already big statement for the group. Yeah.
Also on the issue of LGBT community, you once said, thank you if you understand me. It's okay if you don't.
Yes.
Well, it's easier said than done, isn't it?
Yes, not easy to say that, requires a lot of confidence to say out that words. I think before I make my decision choices in my case, I did ask if society, everything's ready for me. I said I make myself the best and use my personal driven existing attitude, changing your attitude, maybe your misunderstanding, maybe discrimination, everything. I accept it, but give me some time. Then I will be changing your opinions. That's, I think, the positive image, sure of yourself is most important, instead of asking all the environment ready for you.
Yeah. Is this issue still important to you at all?
No, I don't think because I got a lot of confidence from my children. My existing in China, everything positive feedback and the negative feedback, everything I receive from my Weibo. Even my children, they are old enough to get in the Weibo. The criticism about their mother, they can get it every day. But all my children coming back, one day, I remember clearly on the TV, they announced my name, the world-known Chinese transgender modern dancer. And the kids look at the TV, so they are so pathetic, Mom. I said, why you say that? They couldn't get over this, right?
Yes.
Then I look at my children, 11 years old, can say that word, gave me big comfort and confidence.
They are great kids.
Yeah, wonderful.
I have to say they're great kids.
Yeah, wonderful.
There has to be a mother behind them that could be these kind of kids.
Even the classmate asked them, saying, do you know your mother was transgender? They said, so what? She's still my mom.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then I said, oh, thank you. That's, I think, because I want to be a stronger and much more, you say that I'm doing a lot of things. Sometimes society could be very crucial. I want they grown up, they are proud of their mother, instead of they become, one of the tools against them. So that's why I think I tried my best. Yeah.
This year, Jin Xing was busy with her new drama, The Father. She's been busy as a choreographer, host, program judge, drama performer, and dancer. I asked her how she managed to juggle all these roles at the same time. You went from modern dance to TV host. And now you take a new challenge to act on the stage.
Yes.
So, one after another, why?
The curiosity drove me to take the challenge and challenging myself. It's not challenging other people, challenging myself. And after I overcome, then I gain from the experience for life. That's why I always say have quite a positive attitude turning to life.
After that, anything wouldn't be a problem.
Yes, no problem. I think coming and go and taking and giving, everything's normal. Just how I'm dealing with that. And I think also people, if they never met me in person, they have a different idea about the Jin Xing, the wondering. But when they meet me, my eyes, the truly look and the way I talk, people say this is a true person. That's, I think, convince people, convince society. That's why I become a dancer, can be a TV host, have such a popular TV talk shows. People, they feel that the person talk with their heart. It's not like just grabbing some text, saying out. It's I really everything to my heart.
Every profession you took on, from a contemporary dancer to a TV talk show host, scrutinizing some of the most well-known persons in today's world, particularly in China. None of this is done easily. You have to go through a negotiation process. You have to negotiate with the rest of the country,
rest of the world,
and
yeah.
the rest of the environment. I guess.
Exactly, environment.
So that's another kind. It's not like the pain of the operation.
No, 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 no.
It's not like dragging yourself out of the hell.
No, a lot of psychologically being strong and determined, and the
Tell me more about that.
No, because I think the whole my life training before 28 years, 30 years of dancing on stage without a word, my body language already training me in the perfect expression. Then transfer to oral language of communications, my eyes, my expression, my body language tells what I mean about it. Art of the communication, I think I fully in my hands. I got this tool.
Right.
Then communicate with people and never forget your truly heart. That's even I talk with all the celebrities. I'm just dealing with the matter. Let's never take a personal. I'm not against the person sitting next to me. It's about the matter, the issue I'm not agree with.
In your dance expressions, you are direct.
Yes.
You want to say it with strength and also with a lot of uniqueness.
Yeah.
In your talk show, you were more than direct.
Yes, 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 yes.
You asked some of the toughest questions to the celebrities.
Yes.
And as a result, you might offend one or two, or even the group.
Yes, yes. Of course, there are fans, there are groups sometimes, but they know my motivation is there. It's not targeting people, make people uneasy. I don't get any benefit. I don't get any habit of that. I just talking about the issue I'm dealing with. I want to get the opinion. The great show on TV, I think for TV audience, is you have a program, you have a platform, you give your opinion, attitude, let the viewer, audience to make a judgment. I think in this modern society, who going to teaching whom? Who going to educating except your parents educating you when you are young? But we do have the way to exchanging our view and opinion through this platform. Then let make audience make a judgment. Even I launching my Chinese dating show, everything's put there. Let people make decisions. What kind of lifestyle you choosing?
One of the reasons many people love watch some of your shows is because you talk directly, particularly you talk about women's issue very directly. For example, you describe how men should improve themselves in order to keep up with the wonderful women these days who have been progressing so much. And as a result, you might offend one half of the world. So people think this is a person with a lot of guts. Have you been planning about this when you are saying this? Or it is just coming out very naturally?
Actually coming out naturally. Actually all my topic in my talk show are coming out with my experience, but I want to talk about it. And maybe I offended some peoples. But for the new generation, they learn that from female point of view, the eyes, we wish you could be better, better man, better for the society, everything. So in the good run. So I think people, when it's a tough words, but after the show they feel that, okay, that's the right thing.
It is not always the smoothest time.
No, no, not at all, no, no, no.
In your life. When it comes to modern dance, you went through some ups and downs, whether performance could be held. And when it comes to other formats, including TV shows and drama, probably you will run into the very similar situation.
Even my son said, don't you want to get angry? You should be you're filming. I said, no. Actually, perfect time, good. Everything happens is good moment. Mommy need a little bit of rest and see the real audience, how they respond. They are really responding to my show. They like my show. And also keep myself at distance. After 3 years run this, all the topic, you need to refresh yourself. Then I said, perfect. That was even my husband, even myself, clapped for me. Said, "You get it, mature and mature." I said, "Yes, I take things easy."
That is Jin Xing, a well-known modern dancer, choreographer, actress, and TV host. Before we go, I asked Jin Xing about her confidence in China's culture. Here's her reply. And we talk about the cultural confidence these days a lot. What should we be confident about? If that is a question I can put to you. And what part of our history do you think is most fascinating to you?
I think our Chinese have enough confidence. Just wait. Culturally, enough confidence because we don't need to say the 5,000, 6,000, whatever. It's counting the time. No. Before we use our culture much more in the propaganda way to let people know what existing. But now we don't have to because the whole world are turning ahead, looking China, try to learn, get connected with China. I think for us, most powerful is the cultural influence. Naturally be there. Our philosophy, our Chinese way to special way of breathing. Why everything take time in China? Because that's our philosophy. attitude to life is different. And also Chinese thinking always around, never square, never diagonal, everything around, turning around. That's the life of philosophy. So if you are dealing with China, so it doesn't matter with business or economic and cultural, everything, you have to be understanding and face the real picture of China.
How are you going to face all the difficulties? What is the best remedy? Is time the best way? Is patience the best way? Or is just direct yourself to another direction and try something new the best way?
I don't know. That's a very good question. Sometimes I'm asking myself, even my husband asks me, what is next? But I said, I don't know. That's the quality, beauty about life. You don't know what's happening, just waiting for the curtain to open. You open your window curtain, maybe you see a sunshine day, maybe you see a raining day, but doesn't matter, facing it. Always a new challenging, new chapters.
What a pleasure, Jin Xing, to have you here
on
our program. And that is Jin Xing, a true artist coming from China, in our series of figures in China who have been making contributions to China's reform and opening up the game changers. And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find this World Insight CGTN into your search engine, or check out our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on the World Insight team, thanks for watching, and tune in again next time for insights across China and around the world. Good night.